boom, boom, boom. Yeah. All right, I don't know what that was, but we're rolling, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Hey everyone, what is the vision behind your live stream? We'll find out here in just a second. Hey everyone, thanks so much for checking out the channel. I'm Justin Edmonds. This is my channel. As you just saw in the intro, we talk about all things audio. We've been talking about streaming. But first, if you wouldn't mind, please hit that red button right there, that big red one. What's more important than the big red one is that little thumb that looks kind of like this. Smash it. Click it. Bring your mouse around it and hit click. But for sure, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. This is taking way longer. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. My last video actually went way more crazy than I was expecting it to. Thank you so much. I don't want to not say thank you because it is a huge deal. If you haven't watched that, it's right here. Make sure you go check it out. What did we talk about in that video? I talked about why the church isn't on YouTube. That was not clickbait, I promise you. What that really was is I understand that a lot of people are streaming their church services on YouTube. Obviously, I understand that there are people that are doing the exact thing I talked about in that video on YouTube. But what I mean is that there are 40-something thousand churches in the United States alone. And the fact that only a handful, I think I could have literally counted the people that I found or were told to me on one hand, maybe two, is insane to me. Insane. There's 40,000 churches, not people that go to the churches, just physical churches alone in the United States, 40,000 of them. And the fact that there's only a handful of people that are doing this is the exact reason why I made that video. So make sure you go check that out. Continue on. This is kind of a part two, but not really. So what I tell clients all the time when they say, hey, we need a live stream, and I get that we're in the middle or towards the end of a pandemic, hopefully end of a pandemic, what is the vision behind live streaming? Now, obviously, everything AV related needs to have some sort of vision because the idea of AV is always supposed to be that it enhances what we're doing inside of our building, in the ministry. So what's the vision behind live streaming? And the reason why I say that is because I think that the way you execute that can be different depending on what the vision is. Is the vision that, hey, we've got, periodically a handful of people that are sick or are out of town because they're on vacation, and we want to make sure that they can continue to watch services while they're out. Cool. That's option number one. Option number two is, hey, we have, people that are snowbirds or travel consistently, where they're out of town a ton. They really want to be a part of what's going on and they don't want to miss anything. That's option number two. And then the next option is that, hey, we really want to be able to let people in and see what's going on. I love the idea of being able to go, hey, you should come to my church. And maybe that person A doesn't go to church or is an ex-churcher, and they're like, I don't know, maybe, shoot me over some video of the pastor speaking, and maybe I'll be willing to go. So that's great. And then there's another option where it's just like, hey, we just want to be online. Hopefully someone stumbles upon us and we can reach them, and maybe that becomes something. I think that those are all great reasons. There's not a single one of those reasons that I think is bad, but I think that the main thing is choosing what one of those is, choosing which one of those you want to do. Because if the idea of, hey, we just have probably 3 or 4 people that are going to be watching this, then we probably shouldn't be spending gobs and gobs and gobs of money on this. Now, I do remember that I was working at a church here locally for a little bit. I was just kind of doing some freelancing stuff, helping them out. They were in the middle of a staffing change. And they were just getting into live streaming. They had a couple cameras, and they were also recording one service and then playing it on video in another room. A couple different options there. And they had probably just spent, I don't know, probably like $10,000 or $15,000, which is like, I don't want to say that that's not a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of like video streaming things, it's not really that much money. And I remember in between services, there was one of the congregation members came into the room where we had all the video stuff set up. And he was kind of like, wow, we spent a whole lot of money on this. This just doesn't really make sense because, you know, we really want people to be inside the building. And I said to him, I was like, yeah, I totally get that. I understand we want people inside the building. But at the same time, like, think about how much this building costs and how much this building costs to maintain. And this building wasn't a small building, but it also wasn't super massive building. I think the main sanctuary held about 900 to 1,000 people. And it had a few other smaller rooms. Their old sanctuary, I think, held like 300 or 400 people. So I was like, listen, this building probably cost a couple $100,000 a year to manage, not including all the staff members and those kind of things, plus how much the building physically costs. I said, now imagine this. How many people could we, at capacity, could we service and reach the kingdom for in this physical building? And his whole thought process started to change right before my eyes. I said, listen, that's 900. I'm like, if we did 3 services, let's round this up to 1,000. That means 3,000 people a weekend, meaning that we could reach somewhere between about 150-ish thousand people, maybe 200,000 if you include the other rooms, student ministries, all those kind of things. It means we can reach 200,000 people a year in this physical building. I said, listen, think about it this way. Now, granted, I'm not a giant fan, and if you ever watch Shark Tank, they hate this thought process where it's like, oh, this is a $50 billion a year business, and if we can get 0.5%, that means that we'll be making, you know, like, well, yeah, obviously you'll be making that. So I'm going to preface, I understand a lot of people hate this statement that I'm about to make. There's about 7 billion people on the planet. If you could get 200,000 people a year to watch your YouTube channel for sermons, straight to created content for YouTube, you just did the same amount of traffic that a physical building of a sanctuary that holds 1,000 people just did. Think about that for a second. You have now a pool of 7 billion people rather than, I don't know, let's say the average area in America, unless you're living in a major metropolis area, is probably anywhere between 100 and 300,000 people. So you now went from, hey, I have 300,000 people in my pool to try and get 2/3 of them into my building throughout the year versus I have 7 billion people to get the same amount of people. His mind started to change right there and went, oh my God, that totally makes sense. Now, granted, most churches are not going to get 200,000 to 300,000 views, but I will say that I have a friend in New York who has a building that they are in the middle of building that only holds 500 people, but his online content is reaching about 2 million people a month versus views and impressions and stuff like that. Think about that. 2 million people a month online from a church building that holds 500 people. That's insane. That's why live streaming is so important. That's why it's so important to have vision. And when I say vision is, what are we trying to do here? Are we just trying to get sermon online? Cool. Can we throw a camera in the back of the room, zoom it in, you know, kind of nice and close-ish? Cool. We can do that. Let's get it online. Let's make that happen. You know, but if the idea is that we're going to try and go out and reach everyone, we're going to try and reach the lost, we're going to try and be fishers of men, we want people to watch our live stream in a meaningful way. That's why you have people like Church on the Move and Gateway and Bethel and Elevation Church that are all doing these massive broadcast productions like you would see at the Emmys or the Golden Globes, something like that. They're doing that because they want to be able to reach people. So that's why it's really big and important. Now, obviously, we don't all have the money to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on, you know, a piece on 8 to 9 cameras like Elevation and, you know, all these places do. But what I am saying is that you can get some Blackmagic cameras that are $1,000 a piece, and you can get 3 or 4 of those and spend a couple $1,000s on switching and do some color shading, and you can make a really, really great product off of just probably $10,000 or $15,000. And if you think about that in the grand scale of what most things in the church are costing us, that's really not that bad. I bet you the electric bill for the year is more than that. And when I say that, I'm not trying to poo-poo things, but what I'm saying is that that video equipment will probably be good for 3 to 7 years, depending on how well you maintain it. And honestly, right now, the fact that all the cameras are 4K at this point, you kind of have that little built in, because like there's still a lot of the streaming platforms that don't let you go past 1080p right now anyways. So that's where I'm saying is that like we still have some time right now in 2021 to not have to buy equipment that's just going to get thrown away. So just having the vision and having leadership and you both on the same page, I think is so important, because there's so many people that we can reach, and we're not doing it to the full capacity that we could be. And that's not me trying to shame you. That's not me trying to make you feel bad. I'm telling you that the reason why I'm doing this channel is for that exact reason. God told me that I needed to start doing these things and making people understand that technology is so important and is going to reach so many people. And I waited 7+ years to do this channel. I have 215 subscribers as I'm recording this video, and I usually get anywhere between 10 and 40 views on a video. I posted my last video about why the church isn't on YouTube, and it has almost 300 views, and it's been up for a week. Not even a week. It's been up for 5 days. There is a hunger and a need for this kind of content, and there's a need and a hunger for the kind of content I'm telling you to create. So now, what does that mean? What if you don't have the expertise to do that? What if that's not the vision? That's great. I love it. Just don't do it then. Create the content that you need to create. If that content, like I said, is just setting a camera up so that the 3 or 4 people, or right now the people that are staying at home, can just see what's going on because they can't be there in person, great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Fantastic. If the idea is that we're going to spend a lot of money, I would suggest you don't spend a lot of money if that's the idea. That is super simple. You can buy a cheap, Sony Handycam or a Canon Handycam for a few $100s. You can buy a little box cast thing for a few $100. There's a bunch of different options that you can go through, and I'll do that in another video. But you can live stream for pretty cheap, pretty well. Audio can be great. I mean, heck, you could probably even stream from an iPhone for pretty cheap and pretty well done. Not saying that that's the best way to do that, but totally possible. So I'm just saying there's so much content. The vision needs to be there. We need to understand what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. Leadership has to be on board. We have to be on board. And sometimes that's us as the tech people casting the vision. There's a lot of people, a lot of pastors that are so focused on what they're doing in their building because that is what the church has done for hundreds of years. Okay? They maybe are doing outreaches locally. They're doing missions trips, all those kind of things. I get those. Not saying that they're ignoring these things, but a lot of people think that that thing right now that I'm looking into is not that important or doesn't have the type of reach. The bigger thing is like with this channel, like I have 215 subscribers, there are people on YouTube that have tens of millions of subscribers. Does that mean what I'm doing is insignificant? No, it takes a long time for this to grow. Everyone that I'm looking at that is doing something not necessarily the same as I'm doing, but in the same kind of realm, that has 150,000 subscribers or so, what I see when I look through their channel is that it takes about 3 years and it takes about 100 videos for them to really catch fire and like start rolling. So it's really, really important that all that information is prepared when you go to your leadership to cast vision. Pastor, this is what I'm thinking. I really think it's important for us to do this. This is what I think needs to happen. This is why. This is how long it's going to take us. When you start building a new church, if you've ever planted a church, most of the time that church does not just explode overnight. Occasionally it does. But usually church plants start from a home group that has 3 or 4 people in it, and then there's 25 people in it, and then after a year or two there's 50 to 100 people in it, and you're looking for a larger space, and then now you're a church instead of a home group. There's so many things of how the growth of these things happen that it's really important to be patient, to be laid out, and be able to cast the vision. Once you have vision, I will tell you this. I used to run at the church that I was working at for a long time, an outreach that I called Game Day. And we had at our church, we had a youth room that had a full kitchen, operational restaurant, like deep fryers, like it was designed for that, for concerts and such. And I said, hey, why on Sunday afternoons because we're in Michigan, the Lions play at 1 o'clock most Sundays, like about 30 to 40 minutes after our last service gets out. Said most people were leaving that service and going to Buffalo Wild Wings or going to another sports bar or whatever that may be. I said, why don't we open up the ground floor and have the restaurant open and just play the game? We already own the digital DirecTV. We could get it up on the screens. We had older projectors that hadn't been replaced in a long time, and we started doing that. We started getting, about 100 people or so coming to these events on occasion. And we had one guy specifically that said, listen, like, how much would it take to get these projectors to become HD? And I said, I don't know. And he was like, oh man, he's like, because if I probably would have donated the money if you knew. And I never found that guy again. Now, was he serious? I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. But what I have found as being an integrator now is that interaction is something that happens a lot. Where we go in and they start upgrading equipment, people get excited, and then someone's coming that didn't really understand it, but now sees something. They now want to be a part of it. And they go, what do you need to do this? Like, why aren't we doing this, or why aren't we doing that? And you can say, oh, well, we didn't have the money to buy this and this. We're kind of like piecing it together, and they go, well, how much is this? When I say it cost me $10,000 or $20,000 or $5,000, they go, oh, well, that's not as much as I thought. Here's a check. I've had clients have that happen. We've done like $30,000 of a $90,000 project, and when it starts getting deployed, people in the congregation start going, oh my gosh, we love this. Here's some more money. Here's some more money. And then we start getting the funds to start doing everything we want to. So it's really, really important to have vision, have the plan, have the scale of what you want to do. So that way, as you start doing it and people get excited about it and people see traction, you can give them more traction. So, guys, I could probably talk for forever on this. I feel like I was just like vomiting out information. So make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you need some help and advice, make sure you reach out to me. My company does this kind of stuff all the time. We'd love to help you. So make sure you comment down below. I'll throw my work email down in the description as well. Make sure you hit and subscribe and hit the notification. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're hitting the notification bell, getting all the notifications. Make sure you share this video. Please share this, get it out there. Let people know what's going on. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Check me out on Instagram at Justin Edmonds Official, and make sure you're checking me out on Facebook as well, Justin Edmonds Official. I'd love for you guys to interact with me over there. And then make sure you're also noticing that there is a Patreon account, and you can also click on my affiliate links down below. These are all the equipment that I use making these videos. So if you want to get the same equipment, click on those links. It helps support me and helps me make more of this content. So thank you so much, and until next time, subscribe.